p.m. and 12:20 a.m. from Wings Etc. in Cape and Jackson. This is your chance to delve deep into the Red Hawks basketball season with head coach Rick Ray. So what do you say?
Come on, let's go!
Let's go! Go! Let's go live to Wings Etc. on SEMO ESPN.
And we welcome you in live to Wings Etc. in Cape Girardeau. It is the Red Hawks Coaches Show. We've got Red Hawks head coach Rick Ray joining us here, and we want to invite you to join us as well. It is lunchtime. That means at Wings Etc. you can take advantage of their terrific daily half-pound lunch specials. They start at just $6.49, and they have food and drink specials throughout the week, including on Mondays, 69-cent wings, and they've got so much more than wings here at Wings Etc. If you would like to try the entirety of the menu, you can check out their freshly made burgers, and they've got a whole selection of burgers on the menu. They have wraps, subs, quesadillas, entree salads. They have smoked ribs. Their famous appetizer lineup includes their ultimate nachos and their deep-fried pickle spears. So come on out to Wings Etc. in Cape. And programming note, we'll be right back here in this location again next week to talk Red Hawks basketball with head coach Rick Ray, who is here. And, boy, I go to work at 5 a.m. at the radio station, and the roads were fine. All of this stuff has fallen since 5 a.m., but now it's getting a little trickier for guys to get around. And speaking of guys, Donnie Lewis, one of the Red Hawks, we'll be talking with him a little bit later on. But the travel situation a little bit different than we've seen the last day or two.
There's a couple things here. Obviously, we got a couple of our guys, our assistants on the road recruiting, so hopefully they're safe. I know Chris Moore went to go to Dayton, Ohio to see a big tournament there. And then another one of our assistants, Adam Gordon, is traveling to the Memphis area to see some guys play. So hopefully those guys are safe. But nobody gets more excited about inclement weather than my sons. You know, they were Southern boys, so one was born in Mississippi, the other one was born in South Carolina. So this is probably maybe the third or fourth time they've ever seen snow. So when they see snow, they get super excited and they just immediately want to go outside. But
today's not a school day
yes,
or anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
And some they don't understand the difference between snow and ice. They just see white stuff. And I said, hey, it's pretty dangerous out there because it's the snow falling on top of ice at this point in time. So, but they get excited about it. But, you know, the one thing is I grew up in Kansas City. I was used to it, but I was actually born out in Compton, California. So the first time I saw snow was when we went to Ohio as a kid. So I had no idea what was going on with this man and things like that. So I was terrified. I remember that.
I don't even know. I have not reached down and grabbed you. Do we have packing snow, or is it the fluffy stuff where you can't make snowballs?
You can't make snowballs. We tried it this morning.
That's no good. That's not the funnest of the snows.
No.
Yeah, you got to be able to get the packing snow. Red Hawks getting set to head out on a 2-game road trip. They'll go to SIU Edwardsville on Thursday. The women are going to play Wednesday. The men will play Thursday, and then at Eastern Illinois on Saturday. Red Hawks split their 2 home games this past week. Morehead State, that was a victory on Thursday. Let's start with that one. 78-75, you beat the Morehead State Eagles. And maybe the even most ardent Red Hawk fan may not really know how hard it's been to beat Morehead State in men's basketball. They've had a good program. They were, you know, one of the best programs in the league when Kenneth Fareed was here and Donnie Tyndall was the coach. I mean, they were really good. They've been a good program, but they haven't been at the Belmont or the Murray State level. And you've had more success against Murray State, not you personally, but SEMO than Morehead State. 1-14 in the last 15 meetings with Morehead State. So I can guarantee you for diehard Red Hawk fans, it was fun for them to finally get a win over Morehead State in basketball.
Yeah, I tell you this, I didn't know that information until you told me in post-game and radio show. Obviously, Morehead has had a really quality program. I know Sean did a good job with the program, and they've had some really good players. But I didn't know that it had been that dismal against Morehead State. This is a significant win for us because when it's all said and done, we go into that game with 7 bodies that are available.
Now explain why you only had 7 bodies.
Yeah, we've had 2 guys out with the flu. That was Milos Vranic and Ray Kowalski out with the flu. We got a couple guys out with stomach virus. DeAndre Duffus, who's got a previous injury, but he had the stomach virus, and then Justin Carpenter. And then Isaiah Gable is still out with a fractured foot. He gets examined on Wednesday to see if he can progress from there, but he's right now out totally in a walking boot. So that leaves us with 7 bodies. And then Carpenter didn't do anything up until game time. So we didn't even know if he'd be able to play. So for him to even be there, because he was still throwing up and really ill up until that morning. So we just really appreciate the fact that he was just there just to give us another body to rotate in with. So we really only had 6 healthy guys and a 7th guy there who's kind of a zombie at that point in time.
I am a ginger, so I understand about what it's like to be pale and you can't tan, and you just. But he was extra pale on Thursday night. You could tell that he was not feeling well. Yeah,
and I think those 13 minutes that he played was really probably the max that he could have played. I don't know if we could have asked more of him, because he just, anybody that's been sick or dealt with the stomach virus or flu or anything like that, you're just so weak when you come back from it, and you quickly get out of shape. So for us to ask him to be out all those days and then come back and play in a game, we're just asking a lot. So he did a great job for us, and we appreciate the fact that he was tough enough to come in and play for us.
And, when you already are going into a game and you're battling adversities, you were 7 bodies. The guy who got his first start in that game, Donnie Lewis, is going to join us a little bit later, but 7 players, that's it. So you're already dealing with major adversity. Then you get into the game and you're saying, let's not have any more adversity. And here you are, you're not even at halftime. Here comes the adversity. Your number 1 player, Denzel Mahoney's on the bench with 2 fouls. Your number 2 scorer, Ladarius Brewer's on the bench with 2 fouls. Justin Carpenter gets 2 fouls in the first half. One of those deals where, okay, let's hope we can't have any more adversity, and here you are, not much more adversity than the 3 of your top guys on the bench when you have a limited number of guys that can give you minutes.
Yeah, and I tell you what really happens, when guys know they have limited, bodies, they play a little passive, and what they start doing is they don't play aggressive. And what we tell our guys is you're going to get fouls if you're not where you're supposed to be at. You pick up fouls because you're in the wrong position. When you're in the right position, you tend not to pick up those fouls. So concentrate on being in the right places and don't worry about like the foul situation or personnel. And the other part of it too is just, guys are guys. I mean, it's 2 ways you can look at this personnel issues that we're having. Some guys can abuse that and say, what is coach going to do? I'm just go out here and jack shots and, shoot threes and play one-on-one basketball. He's got nobody else to turn to. What is he going to do? Or you guys can look at it, hey, I'm going to still go out and play the right way and do the best things I can do to help my team win. And so our guys really had a good attitude and a good approach about going out there and playing in this situation. But when Ladarius and Denzel got those 2 fouls, we had no choice but to play one for each other. And we just wanted to get through that half without one of those guys getting a 3rd foul. And they really did a good job of going out and playing without fouling.
And because your MO, for the most part, not always, but a lot of the time, once a guy picks up that 2nd foul, we don't see him again in the first half. You couldn't really do that on Thursday. You did have to bring a couple of guys back onto the floor in the first half with 2 fouls.
Yeah, and what I tend to do is, especially for somebody like a Denzel Mahoney, you look at the score too. And so a lot of those situations when guys pick up fouls, 2 fouls in the first half, my philosophy is I don't want to bring them back because I don't want to get that 3rd foul, but I also don't want the game to get out of hand. So as long as we keep it in the single-digit range, I won't bring it back in. But if it starts to get to a point where it builds into double digits and it stays in double digits, then I'll bring them back. But I tend not to want to do that. But our guys have done a pretty good job of hanging in there and keeping it in single digits, so we don't have to do that.
So even with the extreme foul trouble and the limited options available at your fingertips there to pull somebody and put them into the game, you hold Morehead State to under 39% shooting in the first half. You met every player on the floor before they could head back to the locker room, and you congratulated each one of them, just fired up. You could tell you were telling them individually, I am proud of that defensive effort in the first half of the game.
Yeah, I thought we really did a great job on the defensive end. Our offense was lacking, but what we tend to do as a team, we tend to play vicariously through our offense. And I thought that even though when things weren't going well for us on the offensive end, we continued to defend. And so I thought each person was gave a great individual effort, but also was there for team basketball and team defense. So just really appreciated the fact that those guys were locked in because we weren't able to practice. I mean, we didn't have bodies. We had 6 or 7 guys, and so we didn't go up and down full court. We played a lot of 3-on-3, 4-on-4, simulated some things, but we couldn't play. So now you have that fine line between like making sure your guys are staying in shape in order to play a game because you know a lot of these guys are about to play 35 minutes. So you got to make sure they're in shape to play those 35 minutes, but you also don't want to wear them out so they don't have the legs to go into that game. So it's kind of a fine line. So it's a lot of talking with, Coach Johnson, our strength and conditioning coach, Miss Amanda, our trainer, making sure I'm getting input from them to make sure how do we go about practices to keep them short, but also keep them like, hey, it's rigorous so they're in shape to play those 35 minutes.
So at halftime, you go in, you've got a 9-point lead, and you hold Morehead State to 28 points. So I've got to feel like you're pretty satisfied with what you saw. Yeah,
and I thought we had some breakdowns there, mostly from some of our offensive woes at that point in time. But I thought our guys did a really good job of, jumping to the basketball. That's a huge thing. We always talk about if you just jump to the ball, I mean, you're going to help your defense because you're going to be in the right place. So our guys were jumping to the ball. They were really active, and I just thought they locked into the scouting report because there were some switches that we need to take care of off the ball that were a little difficult. It's things that we hadn't done in the past, and they really picked up on those things.
So the second half gets underway. They outscore you in the second half, but you have enough to hold on 78-75. In the final analysis, the rebounding edge went their direction, but you outscore them 18-12 from the free throw line. You outscored them from the three-point stripe, and in terms of turnovers, you turned them over 5 times more than they turned you over. There were a lot of points off turnovers in this game, but that's a stat that you won, and you regularly win that stat a lot because normally you don't turn the ball over that much, and you did not against Morehead State.
Yeah, that's got to be a staple in our program. You just can't beat yourself. I don't care what sport you're playing. The worst thing you can do on the offensive side of the ball is give the ball to the other team or make some sort of an error, I guess would be what you would have in baseball. But we had 13 turnovers. They scored off those turnovers. We had a lot of live ball turnovers. We call them pick six, where you go in and they go down and score on the other end. So, I thought that was really the only breakdown that we had defensively in the first half. Now in the second half, what happens when teams get down, they just start putting their head down and driving. So you've got to make sure that you're a good individual defender, but also you got to do it without fouling. So I think anytime a team gets behind, they're more aggressive as far as driving the basketball, and I thought we had some breakdowns because of that aggressiveness.
Lamontre Harris finished for them with a double-double, 15 points, 10 rebounds. Did more damage in the second half, but it was pretty clear early you were going to throw a double team at him every time he touched it low.
Yeah, he's a guy that if you look at his assist-to-turnover ratio, doesn't want to pass the ball. He's looking to score, and he had a high turnover rate. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to get the ball out of his hands. But, to me, it's dangerous when you double the post if you don't arrive with the basketball. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to see a guy like running at you if you're an offensive player. You see him, so you know the pass is coming. What you want to do is as soon as he catches the ball, the double team is there, so you want to be sudden. And I thought our guys did a really good job of being there when he caught the basketball, staying with it, and we chose to go post to post. A lot of times we'll come from the low side, so it may be a guard, so the length doesn't bother that big as much. But we chose to do in this game was go post to post, so we had our 2 tallest guys in the trap, so it made the vision hard for that young man.
So he finishes with a double-double, 21 points for A.J. Hicks. There's a guy that comes out and puts together his best game of the season.
Yeah, he really hurt us in transition, and then he hurt us by getting the ball into the paint. He's not a shooter. We knew that. But I thought in our closeouts he was able to use his strength to still get by us and get to the rim. And then also, it's just not the guy that's guarding him, the guy that was there supposed to be there for help side, allowed those splits. So he was an aggressive driver. So we did a poor job of keeping him out of the paint.
Boy, in this game, Ladarius Brewer scores 16 points and gets to the line 7 times. So it wasn't just a case of Ladarius just hanging out on the arc waiting to take a three-point shot. He was taking the ball to the basket and led you in free throw attempts. Usually that's Denzel who leads you in free throw attempts, not in this game.
Yeah, and we talked to him about being more aggressive because of the way people are crowding him at the three-point line. He would have the opportunity to sweep and go by and make plays. You know, he's a freshman, so he needs to continue to improve. One of the things he's got to focus in the offseason is his ball handling, especially his left-hand ball handling, so that now when people are closing out to him at the three-point line, he can sweep and go by guys, but more importantly, change direction. He's good going one way right now, but we need to improve it where he changes direction. That's most people in college basketball. There's not a lot of people that can manipulate and change directions, you know, in tight spaces. But I thought he did a really good job of, like, trying to get to the paint and make plays besides just shoot threes.
Because it doesn't take long for scouting reports to come out. I mean, guys are looking for anything that they perceive as a weakness, right?
Yeah, and if you're doing your job as an assistant coach or a head coach, you know, you need to give your guys avenues to win the ball game. And so if you're looking at scouting reports, you start looking at some nuances. Like, it's one thing we tell Jonathan Dalton, you know, you've got to be more aggressive scoring the basketball because everybody's playing off of you now. When you drive the ball, they're looking for you to pass the ball rather than for you to score. Now, continue to be unselfish, but at some point in time, you're looking for the open man, and the open man is you. You need to score.
I thought that was one of your best lines of the year was, you're always looking for the open man, which is what you want him to do, but he is the open man oftentimes. I bet with that conversation there probably was a light bulb moment for him. I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, the guy I worked for at Indiana State was a great storyteller, and so he talked about playing poker, and he says, like, you know, one of the things that first taught to him when he was a poker player is that when you first start playing, you go around the table and you look for the fish. And you say, who's the fish? Who's that guy I can pick on? Who's the guy like? And then he said, so if you go around the poker table after a couple games and you can't find the fish, he says, the fish is you.
It's you. You are the guy who's going to be pulling the lure out of your mouth. All right, so you get 16 points from Ladarius Brewer, and then here's Daniel Simmons again. Now, he was a starter at the beginning of the season, but, boy, he has really found a niche to bring you offense and energy off of the bench. It's important to have a guy that plays that role, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, if anybody knows Daniel, he's a unique individual, and that's putting it lightly. So I know that I asked him what he said when he got the technical foul in Morehead State. And he said, well, I didn't say anything. I said, well, I know that's a lie. That'd be the first time in your life that you haven't said anything. But he is a dynamic scorer. He's a guy that can really attack off the bounce. And we don't have a lot of guys, you know, that can get into the paint and finish. Jonathan can get into the paint all the time because of his size and stature. He's not a threat to finish at times. Obviously, Denzel Mahoney can get there, but we need somebody else that's a threat to put the ball on the deck and get into the paint, especially off of ball screens, and Daniel can do that. What Daniel needs to improve on is the decision-making once he gets there and when to attack, when not to attack, and sometimes he's not the best at that. But, the thing that he can really do is, like, he has confidence in his game. There's no lacking in confidence in his game. And he can make shots and make plays, and we need that a lot of times, especially in open space.
Boy, and it was a case of 5 guys going in double figures in this game. 22 for Denzel, 16 and 15 for Ladarius and Daniel, respectively. And then Mark Aleros was the guy who was really big in this Morehead State game. 11 points, 8 rebounds, and he gave you 33 minutes. It's been a while since Mark's played 33 minutes.
Yeah, and since Mark came back from the mono, he hasn't really been the same. And for people that's ever experienced that, it can just knock you back a few times. I know I got at the end of my senior college basketball season. Unfortunately, I was able to get through the season before I got it. And I know it took me like 6 weeks before I was even back to myself. And then when those 6 weeks that you're out, you're not able to do anything. So your conditioning level is really poor. You've had some atrophies because you're not being able to lift and things like that. So, I thought that was the first time that Mark looked like the Mark of the beginning of the season before he got mono.
And for those who didn't really pay attention closely, he only missed 4 games because of mono. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, maybe because he's from the Netherlands or something like that, that it kicked in. It was a little different for him. But, you know, I mean, some guys, I mean, everybody's pain tolerance is different, obviously. You know, so what you got to do is, like, yeah, you got to kind of go off of what they can say. I mean, if they say they can go or they're ready to go, even though they've been cleared, some guys are fine with that. Some guys get cleared and, hey, they're still not able to come back because they don't feel good about it, and you can't question that. So, you know, Mark came back really, you know, really fast from that mono, and we needed him to come back because we're short on bodies.
But even though he came back, clearly this was the first game you thought that he was 100%.
Yeah, I really do. And I think also he has some confidence going into that game because he played a lot of minutes, and we allowed him to kind of play through his mistakes. And that's one of the things you have when you have a lot of personnel is sometimes you get into a situation as a coach, you don't allow the guys to play through their mistakes, and sometimes that's a mistake on our part. So we've got to make sure, like, we continue to give Mark opportunities to play through his mistakes at times because he's a guy that plays with a tremendous amount of energy. What he does is he erases a lot of mistakes that our guys have because of his length and his activity at the rim, and we need him out there doing those things.
So down the stretch here, you know, if you hit a couple of more free throws there wouldn't have been as much drama at the end of the Morehead State game, but you had to withstand two desperation three-point shots that they put up on the final possession. Either one of them would have tied the game, and we likely went into overtime. What's it like to be a coach on the sideline, seeing the ball up there, and you're thinking, okay, and then they get the offensive rebound, and here comes another potential game-tying shot?
Yeah, and, you know, it's hard because, you know, everybody has different philosophies, whether you foul there and when you have a three-point lead and put them at the free throw line, extend the game that way.
Do you ever think about it?
I do. To me, it's got to be out of a timeout, and it's got to be in a situation where it's under 8 seconds. Because to me, like, when you have more than 8 seconds, that gives them an opportunity to, like, you can foul, they can get an offensive rebound on the free throw block out, they can foul you right away if they score and then go down, and now you miss a free throw. Now they have an opportunity to only need a 2-point shot instead of a 3-point shot. So you got all these situations that you go through in your head, but the biggest thing is you have to practice it. To me, if you don't practice fouling, or if you don't practice those in-the-game situations, you're asking your guys to make a decision at the end of the game that they haven't practiced before, and then they screw it up and the coaches get mad, that's not the player's fault. It's the coach's fault because you just put them in a stressful situation without ever practicing it. So I want to make sure that I'm not coming up with things, you know, there and say it all sounds great in theory. It all sounds good with the X's and O's and things like that. But if your guys haven't experienced that situation, then to me, you're putting them in a bad spot.
Because the one thing is you got to have trust that your guy's not going to go out there and suddenly foul a guy while he's shooting a three, and then you got a tie game.
Right. I mean, to me, that makes all the difference in the world. And also, like, when you foul them and things like that, some guys, you know, I know the philosophy is, like, as soon as they cross half, foul. Don't even let them get too close to it. And some guys want to let it play out a little bit, let them run their play, and then foul. Well, now you got the threat like, hey, if you let them run their play, that guy may not be there. He may lose himself on a screen or a switch or something like that, and now he's not even there to foul. So you got a whole bunch of different things that you have to think about in that short amount of time.
So it's a quick turnaround with less than a healthy roster when Eastern Kentucky comes in on Saturday. One piece of good news was you did get one of your players back, Milos Vranic. He did only miss the one game because of the flu. He gave you 16 minutes, 5 points, and 2 rebounds. So he was in there. Justin Carpenter might have been a little stronger marginally. Ray Kowalski still was not able to help you, but you were not 100% going into the Eastern Kentucky game. You got out of the gate much more quickly offensively against EKU.
Yeah, we were able to score the ball, and I thought we really had some uncharacteristic turnovers in the first half. I think we had maybe 12 turnovers in the first half.
Right.
And then they scored 16 points, I believe, off our turnovers in the first half. I thought the biggest thing that was wrong with our defense was the fact that we didn't take care of the basketball on the offensive end. And EKU was a little bit like Austin Peay in the regards that they go out and they really deny passes, so it can make your offense stagnant and make you become a one-on-one team. I didn't think we did a really good job of fighting for catches. We always said we don't want to leave that guy on the island by himself, but we left him on the island a lot because our guys didn't fight for catches, so there wasn't a lot of ball movement. So I thought our inability to take care of the basketball on the offensive end really led to some poor defensive on the possessions on the other end.
And one of the things that identifies that, even though you shot 52% in the first half and held them to 47, they had 9 more field goal attempts than you did in the first half.
Yeah, and I thought that was I told our guys we shot 52%, in the first half. And we're still down, and the reason is because it seems like we either got a quality shot or we turned it over. It seemed like there was no in between there. So, and they were able to run out because of our lack of taking care of the basketball.
What were the things that you identified mostly on the defensive end, because it was the best offensive night Eastern Kentucky's had? At least they played a couple of non-D1s, but against Division I, the 91 points was a season high. 12 made three-pointers a season high, 21 of 22 from the free throw line. I mean, it was their best offensive game.
Yeah, we talked about being Mayo conscious. Nick Mayo, their big man, is probably one of the better players in the league. And if you're talking about a guy with NBA potential, because of his size and length, probably is the best NBA prospect in the OVC.
He's the best big man in the league, for sure.
Exactly.
Right?
And so, we had to be conscious of him. And what happens with him is he's such a threat because he can play on the perimeter and score, and he can play in the post and score. So you have to make a decision about how you're going to guard him. So obviously, if you play your center on him, then they play him on the perimeter, you're at a lack, you're there. If you play your 4-man on him and then they post him a lot, then you're lacking there. And so they put you in a bind in that regard. But, when it's all said and done, they make some threes that they just normally don't make, in those games if you look at the percentages. I know one of their point guard, number 1, hit a couple early threes before he got injured.
Hobbs.
And so he's a guy that shoots 26% from the three-point line, and our philosophy was close out short to him. And he made a couple, and then we had some situations where we had breakdowns where it led to uncontested threes. And I think when we talk about our guys, we always want to close out with hands, regardless of who you're playing, who you're guarding, because closing out with hands defers shots, but it also helps you defensively as far as passes. I thought too many times we closed out and we didn't have hands.
Well, I thought was an interesting stat. You grabbed 9 offensive rebounds in the game, but only 3 second-chance points. I know you probably look at that and say, boy, I'd like to have a few more second-chance points on 9 offensive boards.
Yeah, and I think what happens with those offensive rebounds, you got to do either one or two things. If you're in a position to score right away up underneath the basket, then go ahead and score. But a lot of times you're not in that position, especially we don't have a lot of size and length at the rim.
Right.
So what we need to do is we need to get the ball out right away and swing it, because everybody for them defensively is in the paint at that point in time. And so what you can do is you can oftentimes get a quick three on the other side if you do that. And I thought too many times that we got an offensive rebound and we didn't swing the ball out around the perimeter right away to make them pay on the weak side and get some easy threes that way. But that's just a lack of us swinging the basketball. But, you get those offensive rebounds. And we're not a great offensive rebounding team, but when you get those opportunities, you just want to be efficient with them.
And there were a couple of guys in the basketball game. Jackson Davis, the kid from Butler, did you know he was that good?
Yeah, I actually recruited him a little bit when I was over at Mississippi State when he was in Kentucky. So he was a guy that kind of came on late there on the recruiting scene. He was getting recruited by schools like Morehead State, mid-major schools. Then all of a sudden he blew up in the state championship game, and I went down to see him, and he went to Butler. So I was aware of his talent. But, I thought a lot of his opportunities came because we didn't block out. I mean, if you look at his points that he scored is off offensive rebounds, it wasn't because of things that he did individually in the half court. It usually was some sort of a breakdown and transition where we were running him down and didn't get our assignments, or we didn't get the defensive rebound.
Well, they had 7 offensive rebounds. He had 4 of them.
Right. And I think he probably scored every single time on all 4 of those. And then it was some just some terrible transition plays off of turnovers where he got some easy baskets as well.
And Tay Weaver, they had 2 guys go down with knee injuries. He was the second guy that went down with a knee injury, and it didn't look like either would return. Weaver did, but he ends up playing 23 minutes. But a guy that averages 5 points and he goes for 15 in the game, it's hard to account for that, in a pregame scouting report, right?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. He doesn't shoot a great three-point field goal percentage. He hit a couple threes that he doesn't normally make. But, once again, it all came down to, our breakdowns that we had. in our transition defense because of us turning the ball over there. I thought that's where he got a lot of his opportunity as well too.
So what was your thought process after the game? Because they did shoot a pretty high percentage and put up a lot of points in this game.
Well, the first thing to me is the fact that we've got to stop being able to rely on our 1-3-1 defense to save us. When it was all said and done, we got back into that game because of our 1-3-1 defense. We were able to knock some balls loose, get some deflections, and run out and go from there. But that can't be the elixir for our team when things are not going well for us on the defensive end. The other part is like us not taking care of the basketball. They had 16 points off of turnovers in the first half and only had 2 points off of turnovers in the second half. And to me, that was the difference in the game. So if we could defensive rebound and take care of the ball on the offensive end, I think we win that game handily.
There's a statistic that tracks how deep into a possession you are playing defense, and you are ranked very high in terms of, I think it's 18.5 seconds of defense each time that the opposing team has the basketball. And I know one of the things that you had been tracking was, I really like our defense early and past the midway point of the shot clock. It's late in the shot clock where I feel we're breaking down. There are statistics that are backing up what you're talking about.
Yeah, we call that money. Anytime the shot clock gets under 10 seconds, we call it money, and we start screaming out money. And I think that's where we're having our biggest breakdowns defensively. We play good defense for that first 20 seconds, and that last 10 seconds, we don't play good defense. And it's two things. It's us not being able to guard our man one-on-one without help. Because the last thing you want to do sometimes in those situations is like, hey, don't give up a three. Don't give up a jump shot. Make them bounce the ball because it's taking time off the clock, and they don't have that time. So I think way too many times guys shoot threes or shoot jump shots that's uncontested at the end of the shot clock. And the other part of it is just us not getting a rebound. We never put that period on the end of the sentence. To me, the sentence is that first 25 seconds of defense, but that last 5 seconds is that period. And we don't put the period on the end of that sentence by getting the defensive rebound. So, I think we're playing good defense early unless we're trying to run them down in transition. So when our defense is set, I think we've been pretty good. It's just like that last 10 seconds of us not being able to guard our man one-on-one and then ultimately getting that defensive rebound.
How do you make it better for the guys?
Well, we've got to become better individual defenders. We spend a ton of time on just, guarding guys one-on-one. The first thing that always would end up happening when we first started doing it is our guys would settle for jump shots. So we weren't getting better defensively because we do one-on-one drills and guys were just taking threes or taking jump shots. And so we started putting the onus on, hey, the only way you can score offensively is if you get a paint touch. So if you don't get a paint touch, it doesn't matter. So now it forced our guys in like 3 dribbles, go make a play. So we just got to become better individual defenders. But at the end of the day, what's got to happen is guys got to have some individual pride in defending their man. There is no motivation like intrinsic motivation, self-motivation. You got to have that. Unless you have that, then there's nothing as we as coaches can do. So, what you want is you want guys that take it as an affront that somebody scored on them. They take it personally, and now they want to go out and make sure they get that stop, because if we're relying on our help all the time, we can't be a good defensive team.
That's Coach Rick Ray, and we're going to be talking with Red Hawks guard Donnie Lewis coming up here after the commercial break. How did you come across Donnie Lewis? How did the relationship between the Red Hawks and Donnie Lewis begin?
Well, I'll tell you what, our assistant, Chris Moore, did a lot of things in Kentucky and recruited that area from his days in Morehead State. So he had some connections there, and Donnie came to us, and he's really done a good job because, it's hard, for people when you're a non-scholarship walk-on guy, but you're still doing the same things that everybody else is doing. And so he's got a great personality. The thing that's not changed for Donnie is he's getting minutes now, and he's still the same person. A lot of times, like, guys start getting minutes and they change who they are. But Donnie's getting those minutes, and he hasn't changed who he is. And so he's been a huge help for our team in that regard.
Looking back at the entire time that you have been a head coach, have you had a non-scholarship player log as many minutes maybe as Donnie Lewis? Right now, He's played in every game. He's averaging 11 minutes per game, and he started the last 2 games.
Yeah, I think there was maybe one guy over at Mississippi State, Baxter Price. That first year that I was there, he logged a lot of minutes because of our lack of personnel. I think we spent the whole season with only 7 scholarship guys. So we needed him to play, and he played for us. But as a head coach, I know when I was assistant at Clemson, we had a guy named Xavier Anderson who played a ton of minutes for us because he was our best on-the-ball defender, especially picking up the ball and guarding 94 feet, and he loved it. I mean, he relished that opportunity. So he was a really good player for us and played a lot of minutes. But now Donnie is probably playing more minutes than anybody has been as a head coach.
All right, we'll talk with him coming up momentarily. But one thing, he hit some big free throws late in the game against Morehead State.
Yeah, and to me, he hasn't been in that situation before, and so for him to be in that situation and come through and be successful just means a lot about him having some individual toughness and him paying attention to his skill level in his game.
I know we were, what was the ribs place we went to in Kansas City?
Gates.
We're sitting in Gates Barbecue, and the waitress comes in, and she's talking to a couple of the players and said, "Oh, great. Are you guys a high school team or a college team?" And Donnie Pope said, "Oh, high school." "Oh, okay, yeah. Well, he was good." I thought it was good. So Donnie chimed right in and had her going for a while before someone alerted her, no, this is a college. This is a college team. All right, we'll talk with Donnie Lewis coming up after this time. Outward Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau. We'll be back in this location again next week. Donnie Lewis, Redhawks guard, will join us when we come back. This is the Redhawks Coaches Show from Wings on SEMO ESPN.
We love sports, so much that we pack our walls with tons of big flat screens tuned to the very best sports programming. At Wings, etc., we love big...
It's the Redhawks Coaches Show live from Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau, and we thank head coach Rick Ray. He joined us in the first segment. We're going to talk with Redhawks guard Donnie Lewis, but we want to remind you that it is lunchtime, and that means the daily half-pound lunch specials here at Wings start at just $6.49, and on Mondays their award-winning jumbo wings are just 69 cents, and their menu is very vast. Includes much more than just their wings. It's their freshly made burgers, wraps, subs, quesadillas, their entree salads, smoked ribs, and much more. And of course, they've got all of the high definition televisions tuned into the latest sporting events. If you were a football fan, there were plenty of them here over the weekend to watch all the big games and the AFC and NFC championship games coming up this weekend. You can watch them right here at Wings in high definition, either in the Cape Girardeau or the Jackson location. They're open 7 days a week at Wings and late on the weekends because the games sometime run late. All right, let's talk it over with Red Hawks guard Donnie Lewis, who is a Lexington, Kentucky native. How you doing, Donnie?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Now, being in Lexington, it's just in your blood. You bleed blue, right? I mean, you grow up a UK Wildcat fan, right?
Yes, definitely. Everybody loves UK.
Tell me about growing up a Wildcat fan.
Growing up, it's just like everybody wanted to be on UK's basketball team when they're younger, just because it's a whole lot of people who just bleeds blue, and just like people fight about that stuff. It's a competition between Louisville and Kentucky, and people fight about it. And just growing up in that environment just makes me want, just makes you love UK even more.
So, was Pitino the coach at the time when you were younger, or had Pitino already moved on when you were a kid?
I don't think he was.
Okay.
But when I was younger, it was Tubby Smith at UK though. So
okay. So then they won a national championship. Yeah. Tubby came in right after Rick Pitino did. So it's all about winning national championships at the University of Kentucky. How is John Calipari viewed over there? I mean, is he the most popular guy in the state of Kentucky?
Definitely. He's definitely like a celebrity over there. Everybody just loves him. Just love him.
What was it like growing up in Lexington?
It's just where I live. It's where I was born. I like it. I love it. I miss it. Being on the basketball team in college, you don't get to go home that much. So, you kind of miss home, get homesick a little bit. But, I love it. I like it.
Any sports besides basketball growing up?
No, basketball.
All right.
I tried football when I was younger, but didn't work out.
No way, huh?
I just played basketball.
What position did you play?
I was like 7, so I really don't remember.
Okay.
I might have been on the line.
You might have been a lineman.
I might have been on the line.
That's where the excitement ends. If you're a little kid and you're a lineman, it's just not as fun.
Yeah,
you don't get to touch the football as much. But the interesting thing is you're from Lexington, which is University of Kentucky territory, right. And you end up going to Spalding University, which is in Louisville. Now, how'd that work?
The coach, the way he recruited me and how he came up to me, he just caught my attention, and I liked the school, educational-wise, and, I just ended up going to Spalding.
So did you get the business from any of your buddies that what are you doing in Louisville, man?
Nah, didn't. I still, like when they played each other, I still rooted for UK, got some heat for it. Other than that, we just really got routed up a little bit. All
right, now we know about rivalries here in this area. I mean, if you're a baseball fan at all, obviously Cardinal fans, everybody bleeds red in this area. Well, their arch rival is the Cubs. University of Kentucky, the arch rival is Louisville. What kind of a rivalry is it? Tell us about it for somebody who was born and raised in Lexington. What kind of a rivalry is that in basketball?
It's kind of like the Lakers and the Celtics rivalry. It's always everybody ready to go out to eat, just making bets on the game. It's a really big rivalry for people in Kentucky.
Louisville and the University of Kentucky. So did you have a favorite couple of players growing up? Who were your favorite guys?
I like Rondo. He was there. And I like it. I like the whole team when they won it.
Yeah.
With John Wall, and
so I got to believe that you still follow John Wall and Rajon Rondo pretty close in their
a little bit.
How about Rondo, though? He's an interesting cat, right?
Yeah.
You talk about a true point guard. I'm not sure, how good of a jump shot he's ever had, but, every year you look up and you're seeing multiple games with double-digit assists. I mean, you play a lot of point guard. Do you pattern your game after Rondo's much?
Yeah, a little bit. Everybody always tells me, I need to look for my own shot more, but they like when I pass it to them, I'm able to make the right play at certain times, and,
Does Coach tell you, though, because I'm seeing the games, too, there are times where you've got the shot, but I know you're a pass-first guy, but have you thought about, okay, maybe I will, jump up a shot here a little more often.
Yeah, definitely think about it, taking it, and I should, but I end up don't just making the right play. But I look for it.
All right,
figure it out.
because we're starting to see. I mean, Jonathan Dalton all of a sudden he's starting to take a few more shots. What kind of conversations are you having with Jonathan these days, where all of a sudden he's scoring double figures suddenly?
Well, with me and Jonathan, we have like this competition with assists, because we both point guards, so we both be playing with who gonna get the most assists and who gonna do this, But now that he has taken on that role to score a little bit more with people being out, we haven't really talked about it. I mean, but we still do it though, And when we make turnovers, we both be hard on each other. We'll talk about it and be on each other about it, but
Donnie Lewis joining us, Red Hawks guard out of Lexington, Kentucky. Now, you're a human environmental major. I think you're going to have to explain that for us.
It's just like merchandising and, kind of into like fashion kind of. It's
okay.
Like fashion design, something.
Right.
It's something like that. I really can't describe it, but
what's your favorite?
What
what name a class or two that kind of you really like, you really enjoy? All right, that's a huge list of classes that you enjoy.
Couldn't think of none right.
As far as what's the toughest class you've had to deal with so far that you didn't even think, man, I had no idea this was going to be as tough as it is?
I mean, I really don't know.
You're just breezing through it. Nothing's difficult.
Well, I made the dean's list this semester, actually.
Nicely
I got a
done.
4.0, so all the classes was pretty, about the same.
What was that phone call to mom like when you say, guess what? I'm on the dean's list.
Right. Yeah, she was very excited and happy. She was happy. She's like, just keep up the good work.
Was she happier when you made the dean's list or when you made your first 3-pointer?
Oh, yes, both. She was screaming at the phone. She's like, finally, you made a shot. After I made that, a whole bunch of people congratulated me about making a 3 like I had just won $1 million. I got a whole bunch of messages and calls,
And the
congratulating me on
cool thing was you did it against Murray State.
Right.
Yeah, against the Racers. All right, best player that you have ever played against, whether it's in high school or college, maybe a guy or two who you said, boy, now this guy is really good.
Probably Tyler Eulis.
Oh, yeah?
Probably. Him or D'Angelo Russell.
Two guys that are playing NBA basketball. Can you tell at a certain age that you say, hey, this guy's probably a pro?
Not really. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
But as we got older, you start to realize, they're going to make it. Yeah, so.
All right, you guys getting ready for SIU Edwardsville. This will be your first trip to see the Vidal Bean Center. They got a nice little building, much nicer than what we'll see Saturday at Eastern Illinois, but a nice little building here. You guys going on a 2-game road trip here. These are important basketball games, especially you want to try to win your home games and split on the road. But after losing this game against Eastern Kentucky, you guys probably feel like, boy, we really got a little bit more sense of urgency coming up with these next 2 games, right?
Right. Yeah, it's always good to get a sweep on the road and, win all your away games. It just makes the chemistry even much more better and confidence in everybody, even better too.
So practicing when you don't have a full allotment of bodies, do they have to get the team managers out there to start practicing? I know that happens sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, but sometimes the managers ain't as good either though. So sometimes even the coaches have to come and help out. But
can Nick LeGrune still stroke it?
Oh yeah,
okay.
He's always a problem. Coach always gets on us about him. He gets mad every time he scores. He'd be like, it's ridiculous that he scores and y'all he don't even play basketball anymore. But
All right. Are you on social media, Twitter or Instagram or anything? Where can somebody follow Donnie Lewis on social media?
All my social medias are the same. It's Don Diego, Don_Diego at Don_Diego 005.
Don_Diego 005. All right, there you go. Donnie Lewis. So you want to follow him on social media? There you go. Don_Diego 005. Donnie, thanks so much for the time, and we'll see you Thursday in Edwardsville.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Donnie Lewis Lexington, Kentucky native and Kentucky Wildcat fan, his second favorite team behind the Redhawks. We'll finish things up with Coach Rick Ray. The Redhawks are going to play SIU Edwardsville Thursday, and then they'll travel to Charleston to play the Eastern Illinois Panthers coming up on Saturday as well. More from Wings, etc. on the Redhawks Coaches Show after this timeout on SEMO ESPN.
Clearing and cold overnight, all the way down into the single digits. Sunny and colder Tuesday, high tomorrow 17. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ken Boone.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network. This is your local home for Mike and Mike, the Sports Huddle, and all your favorite teams. Get it all right here.
Makes my day go great.
On the SEMO ESPN Sports Network.
Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau, the site of the Redhawks Coaches Show. Don't forget, 69-cent wings on Mondays here at Wings, etc. And come on out. The weather is terrific in here. We will be right back here in the Cape Girardeau location next week, and we'll be recapping the Redhawks' 2 games coming up, which will be Thursday at SIU Edwardsville, and then Saturday the Redhawks will play against the Eastern Illinois University Panthers. Head coach Rick Ray here. You get ready for SIU Edwardsville. What's the first thing that pops to mind when you watch the Cougars on film?
Well, the first thing is Jalen Henry. He's really continued to improve, and that's what you want to see, I'm sure, as a head coach. You want to see your guys improve year by year. And I think Jalen Henry is a huge matchup problem because he's able to shoot threes from the perimeter at that 4 spot, but he's also big and strong enough that he does a great job into the post. And I think SIUE has really done a good job of going out and recruiting some guys that can make shots. I think the biggest thing a lot of times was their struggle, making shots. But now they're making some shots, and they kind of put you in a bind a little bit with their ability to spread you out more. They
were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league last year. Not the case this year, Coach. They come in at number 6, shooting the three at about 36% in terms of overall field goal percentage, down around 9. But I think the numbers back up what you're saying. They can't shoot the three.
Yeah, I think they were a team that if you looked at them last year, they were always in ball games. Always really competed on the defensive end, rebounded tough. But what they were lacking was scoring threats. And I think they've done a good job of going out and recruiting guys that are now scoring threats, along with them still being a good defensive team.
Yeah, the rebounding margin, they rank last in the league in that category. So that has been a challenge for them kind of game in and game out.
Yeah, and I'm surprised by that because that's one thing that we're really good at last So I don't know if it's the fact that they're shooting more threes. I can't imagine that's the reason why they're not getting as many offensive rebounds. Obviously, I haven't done a deep dive into it. I'm sure
are they
their
a
staff
zone team? Sometimes teams that play a lot of zone aren't great rebounding teams.
They play some zone, but they're mostly a man-to-man. They'll play zone when they struggle guarding, but they don't want to. They want to be a man-to-man team.
All right, Daniel Kinchin is the guy that is really knocking down a lot of three-point baskets for them. In fact, Kinchin, among the league leaders, he's made the 5th most three-pointers in the OVC.
Yeah, he's a really aggressive scorer. They actually bring him off the bench. He can play multiple positions. Sometimes he plays the so-called two-guard spot. He plays the point guard spot for him. They run a lot of sets for him off the ball and on the ball. And he's got length. They list him at 155 pounds. I find it hard to believe he's only 155 pounds, but he's a thin guy. But he's got some length, and he's a guy that can shoot over the top of you because of his length.
And, this is a nice little – I always, since they joined the league, I like their building. They got a nice, cozy little nice place to play basketball up there.
Yeah, I think, they did a good job of having a new place but not building it too big.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem. Sometimes guys want to have this big arena, but then when it's not full or it's not a lot of people there, it looks bad. I think with them, I think it's just the right size where they always got an environment.
All right, what do we know about Ray Kowalski? Going to be able to help you going on the road trip, or do we know yet?
Well, it's just all about how he feels. Unfortunately, he still wasn't feeling well when we played on Saturday. We gave him Sunday off and also giving him today off, too. We got a meeting tonight, but that'll be the extent of it. So hopefully he can get back with us and start practicing. But, we'll just play it by ear about how he's feeling.
All right, we'll see how the weather cooperates. I hear Thursday for the game at Edwardsville, that's when the weather's supposed to start warming up a little bit. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, obviously we don't want to help their crowd. Yeah. I think most guys, if you ask them, they much rather play in a raucous, environment than a dead environment. I mean, they want to play college basketball because they wanted to be in situations like that. So I think if you were to ask guys, they much rather play in an environment that's packed and rabid rather than a dead environment.
And I think when we were there last year, they had some sort of a promotion with free pizza or something, but they had a pretty decent crowd when we were there last year. That'll be Thursday, and then Eastern Illinois on Saturday. Coach, we'll see you then. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, Coach will join us again next Monday. We'll be right back here at Wings Etc. in Cape Girardeau for the Coaches Show. Stay tuned. We've got the Will Kane Show coming up next on SEMO ESPN. So long, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. This has been the Coaches Show from Wings Etc.
ESPN Radio Sports Network 92.9.